Hey there, thanks for tuning in to DuckBricks. I'm Chris, and today we are combining 2 copies of the official LEGO Iron Man figure, as well as 1 copy of In RSM Shadow from LEGO Marvel Eternals, and creating a massive, screen-accurate LEGO Iron Man figure MOC. Now this custom creation has been built by MOCist Ransom Fern, and if that name sounds familiar, he is the incredibly talented builder behind the reimagining of the official LEGO UCS Hulkbuster build into a much more screen-accurate and posable version of the model itself, using just the pieces from the same set, and he's done it again. And so, join me as we break down what is probably the most screen-accurate LEGO Iron Man build that you can make today using just pieces from 3 LEGO Marvel sets. Let's go! Okay, so this is the Iron Man combo model built by the incredibly talented Ransom Fern, who of course you definitely may know from rebuilding the massive UCS Hulkbuster. Now this particular model utilizes 2 copies of the buildable Infinity Saga Mark 43 Iron Man, which you can see the display plaque for right here, as well as 1 copy of the LEGO Marvel Eternals in RSM Shadow. And if you're curious, here's what all the pieces look like poured out together. Again, this is both Iron Man sets and the Eternal set, and here's what it looks like when you've built the figure and what pieces are left. As you can see, there was a pretty significant number of pieces left. Again, this is really trying to optimize being able to make the most screen-accurate Iron Man possible out of LEGO bricks, utilizing just the 3 existing copies of the set. And honestly, I was really surprised by just how much of every single set was used in this model. Obviously, there's some things, like the headpiece and whatnot, that are only used once, but I was honestly pretty impressed by just how many pieces were used in it. Now, what I've done is I've gone ahead and applied the sticker sheet pretty freely in terms of wherever I felt looked good on the model itself. The initial design of the MOC does not recommend or does not ask you to put on any stickers, but I just kind of applied them in places that made sense to me. They might not be the most screen accurate, but I do feel like the stickers do add on some detail, and it felt like a shame to waste the 2 sticker sheets, so I figured, you know what, why not, I'm just going to go ahead and apply it. Now here's the thing about this figure. This is meant to be a display model and not a play model by any means. There is basically no articulation in the legs whatsoever. You do have the option to actually bend the knees themselves, so if you do want to bend the knee like so, you can actually disconnect it from the upper part and have it bend for a walking pose there. But this joint is not strong, it is not meant to be strong, it is not really meant to hold any poses. I mean, I guess you might be able to hold like a slightly bent pose like that, but it's really not what it's meant to do. This is meant to be a display model, and because of that, the legs can't actually move beyond just this particular range of motion, just by the way the joints are situated to make sure it's strong. One thing that I will note is that unfortunately, there is a fairly weak connection for the feet themselves. I am not really sure how this could have been strengthened, but as you can see, the feet do kind of tend to just fall off. They are only connected by 4 studs, which you would think is enough, but not really when it's just supporting the weight of 1 foot. You do have a limited range of foot articulation though, which is kind of nice. You can bend them back and forth, and actually, if you actually just are willing to modify it a little bit, you can move these tiles backwards and actually have the feet much more rigorously attached like this. It looks a little bit more awkward, but if you do want to increase stability, that is one way of doing it. However, I'm just going to put it back to the way the instructions recommend, which does look better, just like that. And then overall, let's take a look at the rest of the model itself. Now, thankfully, the arms are pretty posable. I feel like posable arms are pretty much required even when you're making a display model. It is pretty necessary to be able to pose the arms around, and so when I move up to the arms and kind of zoom in on the upper half of the torso here, you may notice that you can actually have a pretty full range of articulation, a very realistic range of articulation on the arms themselves. One thing that I love that the figure does is introduce these CCBS-esque armor shells. They're not really CCBS, but they kind of look like the similar design. They are introduced for the System Iron Man pieces, but what they did on the actual set was mount them upwards on the shoulders and then mounted the arms much lower, which resulted in pretty awkward proportions. This basically fixes that issue by introducing the building technique to attach them onto the sides of the arms themselves, which is really good. I'm really glad they did that, and I feel like that looks like very solid in terms of how that's done. Now, For the rest of the arms themselves, they can bend based on the hinge joint here, so that's basically the articulation that you would expect to get. You can, again, move the arms all the way around. You can have him waving, you can have him be doing all sorts of different poses, and it is really, really satisfying to get this in different poses because it just feels so realistic. This, I feel, crosses the line between being a Lego brick-built character and an action figure, and even something like a Hot Toys replica, where I feel like this is something that is genuinely a good replica of Iron Man. Now, despite the fact that posability is fairly limited, you can actually articulate the head in all sorts of directions. I love the way the neck is done because previously the neck on the official set is just using one single mixel joint bar to attach, but here it just feels a lot more solid in the way it moves around. It feels like there's neck armor rolling up to the actual part of the neck itself, and overall I am very, very impressed by the overall detail and design of the figure itself. Now, speaking of the aesthetics, because that's another point I do want to talk about, it is very, very satisfying to just go all around on this figure and just see the amount of attention to detail that has been set to really replicate all of the details of the Iron Man figure. One really nice touch is that you can bend back a panel here, push forwards one particular piece, so you just need to push one little clip forwards, and then once you push this back, the light on the chest actually does light up and it stays on, so that is a really nice touch. Really love how that basically just causes the light brick to perpetually stay on, and it is just very satisfying to display this with the light on because it just looks that much better. Now, you do get 2 extra light bricks with the set itself. I'm curious if anyone wants to try to mod them, I don't know, into the back of the legs or something. Here is really the only place where it made sense to include a light brick for the chest, just because it was prioritizing the actual aesthetics and not playability, but I do like how that was a feature that was still managed to be included. Now, aesthetically speaking, this is honestly one of the most aesthetically impressive models I have ever built. Rotating the arm to the side so you can really appreciate the amount of detail that can be seen here. We start with the feet, which are really expertly done. I love the way that the legs are done. This just feels very realistic with the larger and clunkier style of Iron Man armor. Moving on upwards, you can see the way that the hip joint is working right here. You've got little bits of greebly detail right on the inside there. Like, this is very, very fine detail, fine mechanical detail, which looks so, so good. And then going upwards to the chest, there is a very impressive configuration of different pieces held on by mixel joints, which feels almost random in the way they're set up, but it just fits together so well. The armor plating feels like it was almost perfect, slotted in to be the perfect form of armor for Iron Man. Now, moving alongside here, one thing I really do like is the way the chest is done as well. This is utilizing a very interesting build to actually mount these at a slight angle and then have these mounted on mixel joints on the top to really make it feel like a custom-built torso. I mean, the angles achieved in this model are honestly some of the most impressive I've ever seen out of any other LEGO model out there, and that is high praise given that I build a lot of LEGO models. Rotating this around the back, we can take a look at how the detail continues even to the back itself, where you can see these shoulder blades are done with the gold there. There is a little bit of the spine done in alternating gray and gold colors here, and as we move on backwards, you can even see some of the hinges used for the legs themselves. Even though they are fixed hinges, I mean, you can cause them to rotate if you want to. I really like how they did actually manage to include that type of hinge there, which just adds a lot to the mechanical detail of the piece itself. Again, the only major downside to me is that those feet do come off really easily, and that is just something that, again, can be fixed if you even just have like some extra pieces, want to make it a little bit thicker. These 2 pieces are basically built just to coincide with each other, so let me actually see if I can move these forwards a little bit. And you know, that honestly doesn't look that bad, and I'm now starting to suspect I may have actually built it wrong, because I'm only having that problem on one of the feet, and the other one is marked forward. So honestly, I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be like that. So scratch what I said about the feet. They're actually really solid. I'm sorry, that was totally a mistake on my end. I think that that was definitely something that was intentionally built to be seated forwards here, and that makes total sense in the way that it's done, because you actually have the Nexo tiles now locking in the mechanism, so this is not coming off. Okay, there we go. My bad. This armor piece also does rotate up and down like so. I'm not sure if it's intended to rotate, but it does actually rotate back and forth, so you actually have a little bit of internal design here, and really the builder was using basically all the tricks and tools at his disposal, including the pinkish colored pieces from the Eternal set, just to make up the internal construction of the build itself, which to me is really impressive just how many different pieces were managed to be factored into an impressive model like this. Overall, there's not much else I have to say about it. It is very realistic. It looks so good. It is the best Iron Man figure I think you could make out of Lego today. I genuinely cannot think of a better way to do this. And it's just so impressive to me just how this was pulled off. It just looks so perfect. It looks realistic. And yes, this is not a posable action figure. For people wanting a posable action figure, this is not the model you should build. You should build the actual Lego Iron Man figure set. But if you're looking for a realistic display model, like many MOCs are, like many adult fans of Lego are, if they want to build something and have it stand on a shelf, or in my case, be mounted to a wall in perpetuity, this is kind of the perfect model for you, and it's so good that it literally combines aspects of 3 existing sets. I actually was able to get this on quite a good sale for all the sets involved, so I feel like I paid a pretty fair price for this. Wouldn't recommend paying full price for all 3 sets, especially the Ransom Shadow set, just to use some of the pieces in it for this model. But if you can get it on a discount, or even better yet, just buy the pieces individually on Bricklink, I definitely would recommend picking this up because it is such a solid model. That's all I have to say about this one. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and this has been the incredible Lego Iron Man Mark 43 figure, combining multiple different Lego sets from, of course, the very talented Ransom Fern. Alright, and with that we have summed up our look at the incredible Mark 43 screen-accurate model by Ransom Fern. Again, huge shout out to Ransom Fern, one of the most talented builders out there. If you want to build this yourself, you can check out his instructions linked in the description below. I hope you enjoyed this video. This was such a blast to put together and review. Thanks so much for watching, and let me know down in the comments below, are there any other custom models you want to see me build and review, because there's a lot I want to get to. That's all for now. Thanks so much for watching, and bye-bye.